91 degrees on that porch thermometer this morning. And by the time I sat down to talk to you, it was reading 68. No electric bill, no hum of a compressor, no chemical coolant leaking into the ground behind the house. Just an old trick my grandmother kept in her apron pocket her whole life, and I'm going to show you exactly how she did it. Now, some of you are new here, so let me tell you who's talking to you. My name's Walt Higgins. I was raised on this same piece of ground my grandfather cleared with a mule and a plow. He taught my father taught me, and now I'm passing it down the only way I know how, by sitting right here and telling you straight. No fluff, no gimmicks. My grandmother lived through the Depression as a young bride, and she used to say the hardest part wasn't going without money. It was going without comfort, and having to invent it yourself out of whatever was sitting in the yard. Cooling the house was one of those inventions, because back then, there was no such thing as calling up the power company. If you were hot, you got yourself cool, or you suffered. And what she came up with, using nothing but water, salt, cloth, and the wind that was already blowing through her kitchen window, still works better than half the gadgets folks buy today. Walt. And that's really the heart of what bothers me about how we live now. We've been sold the idea that comfort has to come with a cord attached to it, that you need a machine full of refrigerant chemicals, a service contract, and a $50 a month spike on your electric bill just to sleep cool in July. My grandmother never had a single one of those things, and by her own telling, she slept better than most folks do now with a unit rattling in the window all night. I've written down every one of these old cooling tricks, along with the rest of what she and my grandfather leaned on to get through hard summers and harder winters, food that never touched a refrigerator, gardens that fed a family of 6 off a quarter acre, all of it in one manual. I keep the link right in the description below this video if you'd like to have it in your own kitchen, the way she kept hers in that apron pocket. Now, let's get back to that porch. Here's the thing my grandmother understood in her bones, even though nobody ever called it science around our house. Water pulls heat out of the air when it turns from liquid to vapor. That's it. That's the whole secret. Every one of these tricks I'm fixing to show you is just a different way of getting water to evaporate close to where you're sitting, and letting a breeze carry that cooled, damp air across your skin. She used to say, "The wind doesn't care if it's hot or cold, Walt. It just carries whatever it passes through. So, if you make sure it passes through something cool and wet before it reaches you, the wind does the rest of the work for free." Now, I've tried every one of these myself, right here on this porch, and in that work shed behind me. And I'm going to rank them for you, 1 to 5, so you know exactly which ones are worth your time. This is the simplest one, and it's exactly what my grandmother hung in the kitchen window every morning come June. You take a length of muslin, or any loose weave cotton. An old flour sack cloth works just fine. Soak it clean through in a basin of well water, wring it out so it's damp but not dripping, and hang it straight across an open window where the breeze comes through. The air has to pass through that wet cloth to get into the room, and every bit of it comes out 5, maybe 8 degrees cooler on the other side. I give this one 3 out of 5 because it works. It costs you nothing but a bucket of water, but you do have to keep re-wetting that cloth every hour or two once the sun climbs high. This one my grandfather learned from a neighbor who'd come up from the dry country out west, where they'd been doing it for generations longer than that. You take an unglazed clay crock, the kind that hasn't been fired with any glaze on it, so the water can seep right through the walls of the pot, and you set your drinking water, or even a wet rag, down inside a shaded corner of the porch, or the spring house. That clay sweats just like a man working in the field, and as the water works its way through the pores of the crock and evaporates off the outside, it pulls the heat right out of the air around it. Set 2 or 3 of these in a room with the windows cracked for cross breeze, and you'll feel the difference within the hour. 4 out of 5, only because you need a genuine unglazed crock. And those aren't always sitting around every kitchen anymore. Now this is the one that changed everything for my grandmother, and it's the closest thing to what folks pay good money for today. Back before the electric icebox, the iceman still came round with blocks cut from the winter pond and kept in the sawdust of the ice house clean through August. She'd take a block of that ice, pack it in a wash pail, and stir in 3 or 4 tablespoons of common table salt for every gallon. That salt does something remarkable. It drops the melting point of the ice. So instead of that block turning to water in an hour, it holds its cold for most of a whole day, slow and steady. She'd set that pail in front of an open window, or hand it to one of us kids to fan toward the bed of whoever was feeling poorly that week. And the air coming off that salted ice was colder, by far, than plain ice water ever could be. If you've got a hand fan, a palm frond, even a folded newspaper, and you wave it across the top of that salted ice pail, you are doing, by hand, exactly what a modern air conditioner does with a compressor and a coil, except it cost you a block of ice and a spoonful of salt from the pantry shelf. 5 out of 5. This is the one I still use in the work shed every summer of my life. This last one isn't a trick you build, it's a place you go. Every farm my grandfather ever worked had a root cellar dug down into the earth. And the deeper you go, the more the ground holds a steady, cool temperature no matter what the sun is doing up above. On the worst days of August, when even the shaded porch felt like an oven, my grandmother would send us kids down to shell peas or sort potatoes in that cellar, and we'd come back up an hour later feeling like we'd been somewhere else entirely. If you've got a basement, a cellar, or even a root cellar dug fresh this year, that's 4 out of 5 on my list. Free, permanent, and it works every single summer without you lifting a finger. It only loses a point because not everybody's got one dug already, and digging one is more of a fall project than a today project. Now here's what surprised me most, going back and doing this the old way after years of just flipping a switch. It isn't gradual, the way you'd think. That room stays heavy, thick, close, the kind of heat that sits on your chest, right up until that salted ice and that hand fan get going, for about 15-20 minutes. And then, it isn't gradual at all. It's heavy, heavy, still heavy. And then, almost all at once, it's gone. The air just breaks, like a held breath letting out, and what's left behind is that same cool you'd get from a window unit, except it smells like well water and salt instead of machine coolant. My grandmother didn't have a degree in anything. She had a well, a block of ice, a spoonful of salt, and the good sense to pay attention to what the wind was already doing for free. Every year I teach this to my own grandkids, because the day we forget how to cool a house without a cord plugged into the wall is the day we've lost something a whole lot bigger than comfort. It's the day we've lost the knowing. If this is the kind of thing you want more of, I've got the rest of what she taught me written down and waiting for you in the description below. And next time, I'm going to show you the trick she used to keep butter from turning in a kitchen with no icebox at all, a method her own mother swore by, and one I still use in this house today. Until then, I'm Walt Higgins, and I'll see you on the next one.